Behind the Mirror of Music with Dannii Cohen.
Hello everyone and welcome to Behind the Mirror of Music, the video series. In this week's episode, I will be talking to Marni Raab, well known for her role as Christine Daaé in The Phantom of the Opera. In fact, she's one of the longest running Phantom cast members in history. She starred as Christine Daaé, both first cast as well as understudy and alternate. She was also Paige, Madame Firmin, Inkeepers Wife, Spanish Lady, on Broadway as well as various tours. She will now be starring as Madame Giry in the upcoming World Tour. I hope you will enjoy hearing her share her thoughts about the show, as well as the many other things she's been doing in her life.
The first question is always what are you up to right now? Your life and career?
Yeah. So, life and career wise. So I actually just got back from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I was there over the weekend to see a wonderful production by Resonance Works. It was a production of an opera by Pauline Viardot, and it's her Cinderella, a salon opera. And I also had a couple of production meetings because I'm going to direct an opera in June for them. That's coming up. So we were having early production meetings, and I got to see the theater space that we're using and have just initial talks on ideas for set and design team. So we're building our team, and so that was very exciting.
Absolutely. So you do both opera and musical theater. So did you always want to do both, and how did you start combining them?
Well, originally my first love was theater and musical theater, my first loves. And then I started taking singing lessons when I was a teenager. And I started doing some opera repertoire, and my teachers gave me singers to listen to for inspiration. And they were some just stunning, gorgeous opera singers. Leontine Price, Eleanor Stieber, and more whose names I can't remember right now, but really glorious. Jessie Norman was another beautiful icon. And I really enjoyed singing the repertoire. So when it came time to apply for college, I wanted to go for the arts. And I wound up in a voice performance program at Oberlin Conservatory, and the focus was opera. And then I kind of came back to my music theater roots after I graduated. I moved to New York City, and I worked some in opera and light opera. And then I found that more of my opportunities were coming in musical theater, and it's really where I felt most at home. So that's kind of where I ended up. But I still do love opera repertoire. And as I kind of move forward in my career, directing has become very appealing to me. I really enjoy that. And it seems like there are a lot of connections that I can make directing opera repertoire. And it's been a lovely homecoming.
How did you start out? How did you fall in love with music and singing and acting?
Well, when I was a kid, I was very fortunate that my parents took me to see shows and exposed me to theater when I was very young. So it was always something that I knew existed. And when I was about 6, they took me to see Annie on Broadway. And I loved the show, but I think one of the takeaways was that there were kids on stage, and they were amazingly talented in singing and dancing and acting. And I thought, well, if kids can do this, I'm a kid, so I can do this too. So that's when I began kind of hounding my parents to get me involved in some kind of theater or singing or dance. And so they were very supportive, and we were fortunate enough where they were able to kind of put me into classes and programs.
Well, because for me, Annie was also the start for me in loving musical theater. Because I was when I first saw it, I was singing Tomorrow like day and night and drive my mother crazy.
It's very uplifting. It's a very inspiring song.
was your first professional role?
Let's see. So I literally sang for my supper when I was about 12 years old. We used to do these cabaret performances with my my coach at the time, and that was in Greenwich Village in Soho, and I was about 11 or 12, and he would showcase his students, and then we would just get dinner. So, and it was at a lovely kind of kitschy spot with a little stage and piano down in Greenwich Village. And so there'd be public who would pay to come see the kids perform. There were some people who were very good, and I feel like I was very young and green at that point and not very good, but he included me anyway, which was very kind of him. So that was my opportunity to kind of break into something professional. But my first real professional roles came when I was in college. In between semesters over the summer, I worked at Ohio Light Opera, and they do wonderful wonderful productions. They're still active and thriving in Ohio. And I did a Desert Song, and I played a role in that. And what else did I do? Then I was in the ensemble we do 8 productions in revolving repertory throughout the summer.
You are obviously well known for your very long running time at Phantom as Christine and many other characters. How did you get started in Phantom?
Well, I started doing auditions for Phantom and then for some other things also when I was a senior in college and kind of preparing to graduate. And I thought that was the first time I auditioned for Phantom of the Opera on Broadway or for placements for the tour. And I suppose I got put on a list because after that, they began to call me in every year or so. And then it took about 6 years for me to actually get hired. And I was hired to go out on the 3rd National Tour in 2001.
How was your time at Phantom? How did you approach the role of Christine?
Well, I approached. It's so interesting because it was a role that I was familiar with. I saw the show when I was about 13 years old, and so it was something that felt that I always wanted to play that role. So once I was cast, it almost felt like, even though I was cast as in the ensemble and understudy on the 3rd National Tour at first. So as soon as they got me up to speed in my ensemble track, I started rehearsals for Christine. And I felt like I hit the ground running because I had been wanting to do it for so long. I think that Christine the music is just stunning, and I had been singing it for so long. So again, it was mostly just me kind of ready and waiting at the starting gate, you know. So it was just very exciting and to kind of grab it with both hands and take a big bite out of it.
How did you see her character?
Well, I see Christine as a young woman who's grieving the loss of her father, and her father was everything to her. Very much just took up a lot of space in her life. Was very, perhaps maybe we would look back on it and say overly domineering or made too many decisions for her. I like to think of it in terms of where society was at that point in related to women's agency. So I think having a dominant and loving father figure, it wouldn't have been out of the question for him to make all the decisions for her. You know, everything down to what do we eat for breakfast? What do we wear? What do we, you know, so I think experiencing the loss of that force in her life, aside from losing someone she loves, is also very devastating and unmooring. So I think the freedom of having to make choices in life is absolutely terrifying. The freedom of just having to decide what to have for breakfast, terrifying, you know? So for me to start with that gives me a lot of space to grow, is sort of grounds for the terror and the fear and the mousiness that Christine experiences and needs to overcome through the course of the show. So meeting the Phantom, you know, oh, he's a murderer, but he's also a strong, or appears to be a strong dominant figure. So he could capably fill that vacuum.
Absolutely. I think that's that angel, father, friend, or phantom that's completely rolled into one for.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Do you think the role changed over the years when because you did a very long run? So I think the role changed over the years, direction-wise, or did you feel it? Did you change things yourself over time?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that although the production stayed, or the ones that I was doing at least, remained the Hal Prince production throughout. But I was in 3 different companies, and I was in the Third National Tour in the United States and in the Broadway company in the United States, and then the World Tour in Southeast Asia was set by somebody else. So I did experience the direction from a few different people, actually, over the course of the years and over the course of the different companies. And although the production stayed the same, I think there's been room in Phantom to for each individual actor, or at least I was grateful to feel this way in my experience, to be given parameters and then to be able to interpret within those parameters. And I don't think the production changed that much until much more recently. However, I do think that the world changes, and I know that I changed. So the way the production reverberates in the world, I think, changed throughout my time with it, throughout my time playing Christine with it, and then also being with different actors throughout the course. And as my life changed and evolved, I would bring different nuance and different choices, maybe to arrive at the same or similar stage action, but fueling myself in different ways in order to arrive at a more or less comparable or similar, hitting my mark. The way to hit my mark would just be different. Not so much that it would distract from any kind of set movement or cues, but hopefully, and I think I was successful in keeping it fresh.
Did you notice, or along the way, that the Phantom became directed as being more violent towards Christine than he used to be at the start?
Oh, interesting. More violent. I don't know. I remember there. It's always interesting to watch different actors metabolize their own journeys with the role, and sometimes individual actors will choose the feelings, and the journey will evoke more of an anger reaction or a violent reaction from them, and then some are just have a different journey with that. And I think, in my experience, that has changed based on actor interpretation as opposed to overall production aesthetic. Although I may have had too close an experience to it. It may not have been something that I was able to look at in with a far enough lens, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if I have, if I'm too close to it to be able to look accurately at an overall path or an overall trajectory, if it's gotten more violent. Do you think it has?
Sort of, because at the start you had more fans more based on the original book, who were really gentle with Christine, that they barely dared to touch her, and now you have phantoms who really throw Christine or strangle her and that sort of thing. So
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. So, okay. Oh, that's so interesting. I think that when I joined the Third National Tour, already maybe that had begun changing. I think there were moments when the Phantom was afraid to touch her, especially in Music of the Night, towards the beginning of the show. And then I think the Phantom, I don't know, I guess you'd have to talk to Phantoms to figure out why this is and how they're motivating it, but maybe the feelings are bubbling up in a certain way that their rage takes hold, and so they get violent with her, and then they're able to pull it back. I mean, I like different colors, opportunities to show different emotional values. So that's always most interesting if I don't know what to expect.
I think that's always different for actors and the audience, because they think the Phantom should be this way and the actor feels a different way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, we do have wonderful oversight, both always from Hal Prince, and after his passing, we have a very devoted creative team who are focused on maintaining his legacy and helping keep Phantom as accurate to the spirit of the production, and helping to, in the best way that they know how, helping to make sure that the brand of Phantom and the production reflects back to the world in the way that it was intended originally. And that means, in order to stay the same, it means you have to change because time marches on.
Did you work closely with Hal Prince at the start?
I did work closely with Hal Prince, not right at the start, but when I moved into the Broadway company, I had the opportunity to work with him. And then again, he started coming back more frequently to work with us. So I did have the good fortune to work with him quite a bit. So he was really very succinct in his feedback, and his clarity is really wonderful. I mean, there's a reason why he's such a legend, and that was always very apparent, and it was always an honor. And it's very, very thrilling whenever we would know in advance that we were going to have a visit or a rehearsal.
Was there something especially taught you perhaps that you could take with you in your career?
Well, I think the specificity of behavior and of movement and of action. He was so clear in his feedback. If something wasn't working, he would be able to narrow in on exactly what it was. And because he was so clear, that kind of clarity is something that I've been able to just internalize and keep with me. Yeah. And also, I have a habit to talk a lot. Why say something in 5 words when you can say it in 10? And he is so succinct, and that's really admirable, and I strive towards that too. And I love the way I mean, I didn't get to see this in development, but I really greatly admire the way he works with designers on all of his projects. So just to be able to be on that set so frequently and so many times, and just to to see and discover all of the workings of it, especially once I stopped playing Christine and started playing different roles in the ensemble more regularly and kind of jumping around in them as a swing. I really got to experience from different points of view how the set works with the action. And I mean, that was what a valuable takeaway that all is. And Hal wasn't even really present for a lot of that.
What of the other roles you did in Phantom did you enjoy most?
Well, they're all rather, let's see. So all of the tracks are rather similar. I liked rather than identifying one over the other, because you kind of are a different person in each little scenelet. There were moments of each one that I really liked. I loved doing Masquerade and being on the stairs, and being able to be part of a group, be part of that wall of sound, you know, that we're supposed to be creating, and also to be able to see so much of the dancing that was happening on the stage, so it really felt festive. And I love the Hannibal scene. The whole sequence of going back and forth between rehearsal and now we're stopped and we're on a hold, and now these people are coming in and those people are coming in. I always thought that was fascinating. What are the dynamics among all of the different ensemble people? So being able to in 5 different tracks, being able to play with that dynamic of being part of an ensemble, but then also, are we doing a play right now? Are we doing a show within a show? Or is it Hannibal? Is it Don Juan? Or are we in Sitzprobe, where we are in rehearsal for something? Those to play with who I am, you know, to play with character in that dynamic was always really fun.
Phantom comes back to Broadway. Would you return in any way?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Nou, also other things you've done many other shows and performances. Which one do you remember most fondly?
There have been a lot of lovely experiences. I really enjoyed playing Eliza Doolittle in My Fair Lady. And I really enjoyed playing Julie Jordan in Carousel. Those were two standout roles, I would say. And then a big challenge for me was to do Jellylorum in Cats, because that was more dancing than I was accustomed to. And it stretched me as a performer, because I had to kind of break through boundaries of how I thought of myself, where I thought my parameters were, and I had to just let go of those and recreate them.
I think Cats was in Hamburg, if I read correctly. Was it
Yes.
German?
Yes.
Did you learn German for the show?
Ja, ein bisschen.
Were you with German Cats for long, or was the short run?
Well, the run of that production was quite long. I don't know, maybe 20 years. I mean, it was quite long. And then I did it for a little over a year, maybe a year and 3 months.
What was the most difficult thing, learning the dancing or the German?
For me, it was learning the dancing. I did feel a bit exposed learning the German, but I came from an opera background, so I had to study German beforehand. So at least I went in having taken a few German classes during a semester in college. So I had a little bit of a foundation. And then I did take German classes at the Volkshochschule. This is a long time ago. So I studied a little bit more, and I tried to speak German whenever I could while I was over there. So for a while, I was conversant, but I don't think I would be anymore. It's been so many years.
What are your most favorite stage memories of anything you ever did?
Oh, there are a lot. There are a lot. I think, um, well, just one that's kind of earnest and maybe a little sentimental was the first boat journey when I made my Christine debut on Broadway. Because I had been playing Christine, I had done it on the national tour, I had done it on the world tour, and then I went back to the national tour. And so to finally come to Broadway and do it was like, oh, it was, not only was it achieving a goal, but it was coming back to where I first saw the show. So even just being in that same building where when I was 13, I saw this happen, and now I'm sitting in the boat. So that was really kind of magical. And there have been some funny things that have happened. I think during Cats, we just had a very funny cast, and very international, just lovely group of people. And it's so free in the ensemble. There are so many moments when the cats are just sitting around watching, paying attention to one of the cats who's singing their song or telling their story. And there were so many moments where I had to just look away to keep from laughing because everybody would be hilarious. And there was one, this is so silly, but there was one thing where they would play this game. I don't even remember what it was called, but you had to, if you got looked at a certain way, or if you were handed a particular like piece of prop or something, then you had to die very dramatically during one of those ensemble moments where you can do where it was free and you could kind of do what you wanted. So all of a sudden some cat would just die, and they would go through this big dramatic death, or they would just drop dead. And then, obviously, like, and then how do you react to that? Like all the cats around them would have to go and help them up and say, and find out if they're okay. And they would be like, oof, they'd shake it off or whatever, but there was so much room to play. And the people who I was in the company with had such wonderful imaginations. And so it was a new experience every day, and just really fun.
That's so much fun. And you later on moved into writing and directing. How did you decide or feel that you wanted to move into that?
Well, I started when I was in the Broadway company, and I was in the Broadway company playing on various Christine contracts for about 5.5 years. And during that time, and I was, raising my family and raising my kids. And so I also started working as a literary manager for a local theater company, and producing a play reading series, a developmental play reading series. And that was really, really wonderful, really fun. And it just kind of happened because the theater company were just great people, and I saw something they did, and they were doing a play reading series, and I thought, well, I know people who write things. And so I called up playwright friends and I said, what have you got? And then we were casting it. And then the person who had been running the series said, hey, can you, we'd like you to be the literary manager. And so I started doing that. And then I started co-producing those play readings, and then I wound up taking it over. So, and one thing, it wasn't really a big plan, it just happened. And then as I was doing it, I was really enjoying it and realized that I had some gaps in my knowledge and my education. And so I found through talking to a lot of people and research, I found a graduate program, a master's program that was in theater history and criticism. And it seemed like it would fill in a lot of those gaps that I felt needed to be addressed in order for me to be better at new play development. So once I finished my last Christine contract, I went back to graduate school and I got a master's in theater history and criticism. And from there, I did some more producing and I started teaching. And one thing just kind of leads to another, it seems. So I just follow the thing that's right in front of me, the opportunity that's right in front of me that looks interesting. I follow the shiny thing, and it usually leads to meeting interesting people and another shiny thing. So that's led me to here.
Will you be focusing more on directing, or will you also still be performing in future?
Well, I don't know how much performing I'm going to be doing. I'm not pursuing it, and I have this thing where now that I've done some producing and directing, I have so many wonderful I have so many wonderful friends and students and people colleagues who I've worked with, who I've directed or I've produced for. So it always seems that if a performing opportunity comes up, I think, oh, I know 5 people who would be great at that. And I'm like putting friends forward for things, and because I truly think they'd be better at it than me. And so I wind up very happily not doing the performing thing. But that's not to say I never would. It's just my heart has not been in performing recently, but maybe I'll come back to it. I still like to sing.
We're near the end of the interview, because is there anything you want to address that you haven't addressed, or would like to clarify, or anything else?
I don't think so. I just really appreciate your invitation, and I look forward to seeing what you do with the interview. And I wish you the best of luck on your podcast and on continuing to expand your audience.
Thank you.
All right, Dannii. Well, what time is it there? Are you 6 hours ahead? Because what is it, 12:30 near us?
And it's almost 6 o'clock at our time.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, have a good evening.
And have a great day, you.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.
Behind the Mirror of Music with Dannii Cohen.